and welcome to the podcast, Living Uncertain. This podcast is dedicated to obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, and the primary treatment, exposure response prevention, ERP. OCD comes in many forms, such as contamination, perfectionism, checking, harm, superstitious, religious or moral, sexual orientation, and/or relationship. ERP is the gold standard to treating OCD, and it focuses on deliberately confronting fears, the exposure, while refraining from compulsive rituals, the response prevention. With repeated exposures and without engaging in compulsions, we learn to tolerate anxiety and break the cycle of intrusive thoughts. We are a married couple that have faced both the challenges of OCD and the incredible healing that ERP can provide to your marriage, family, and your home. As a person who lives with OCD, I am much more than this diagnosis. We all can be. Hi, y'all. I'm Stacey, and along with my husband, Mark, we want to thank you for living uncertain with us. As you all know by now, this is the podcast that talks all things OCD and ERP related, and welcome to episode 15 tonight, which we are going to talk about more specifics regarding ERP and what it means to really dive into it, learn from it, and use it at home. I think it's a good time in our journey here to really kind of go back to what the beginning stages of ERP looked like for us and what that meant for us then taking that and taking those steps into our house and into our home and into our family life.
And we can also talk about what it means now sometimes for you.
Absolutely.
For us.
Yes. Yes.
So back in our early stages, you had to take a little assessment.
I did.
And you kind of came up with your top
Yes.
5.
Yes. So for those of you who perhaps haven't listened to the very first couple of episodes of our podcast, or even for those of you who have, we just wanted to take a minute to kind of talk about that. I had gone into a pretty dark place before I entered the intensive treatment of ERP. I had just been recently diagnosed with OCD, and I was starting to dip my toes into what kinds of techniques I would need to use in order to overcome OCD and what it looked like. I was beginning to identify the kinds of OCD I related most to, if you will, or had. And so that was definitely a big part of the journey. And then as business owners, we unfortunately hit a wall with our business, and that took me to a pretty dark place. And because of that, I had to enter the intensive treatment, which was daunting, and I was a bit fearful about it right at first. And then I wasn't anymore.
That wasn't the plan initially.
No.
To just catapult you right into
it was not the plan.
It was to start to ease you into ERP, which, that's where you really start, is kind of the smaller things, because your brain, as you start ERP, it's very taxing.
It can. Absolutely.
You're working at that mental muscle that most people don't usually have to work in that way. And they always want to start you off in a slower pace.
In hindsight, given how far we've come, and I say we because it has been, y'all, a very we process with my own health and wellness, with Mark's, with our marriage, with our families, including our 2 kids. I find it was a really good thing that we jumped into a more intensive route, and that I was going for so many hours a week, and that you were coming with me, and that we decided to take this very unique approach to OCD therapy, which is that we did it together. And I think that I wanted to just talk more about those initial stages. So for example, what Mark just brought up is that, yes, the first part of it was I had to fill out a little assessment that kind of was a hierarchy, if you will, of my most feared things, or the the anxieties that most inhibited my life. And then once I was able to narrow down those top 5, top 10, then with the help of our therapist, we were able to say, okay, let's tackle the biggest one, which again, as you all know, was an extreme fear of death. That was really at the top of the list. So we tackled that one first. And we just kept going down the list in the hierarchy of what those fears, what those anxieties were, where OCD took over the most in my life. And we just tackled them one by one.
Which, and one of the reasons why I think you started with the fear of death, I know it was at the higher end of your spectrum. So was the people pleasing, but because of you walking out of the business that day, you didn't necessarily have that ability to do the exposure with people pleasing as much.
Right.
It would have been very difficult because you did not walk back into the clinic ever again.
Right. No, I did not.
So there was, besides people, peripheral people in your life, you didn't have that direct need to people please employees.
Correct. And I did have to, and eventually I did have to tackle that one because that was the people pleasing was a big part of my OCD that was very much inhibiting my life. But it took some time to get to that one.
Yep.
And I tackled others first. So it's been a very interesting journey on how ERP actually works and how the exposures prevent then the response of the compulsions and how you have to really, not only did I have this hierarchy of fears and anxieties, but then I had to take this step of ERP as a hierarchy. Like first you do this, then you do this. And then this comes it was a very succinct set of steps.
It was systematic.
Yes. Thank you. Very systematic.
Yes, that was a big word for me that you would say.
I'm impressed, babe. Nice job. And so I think it was really the way to do it. It was just to dive into it, to do it in an intensive way. And we're here discussing our journey because we want to give you these techniques as well, right? That worked for us. One of them was here I had to list everything from worst to least worst, if you will, of these fears. And then I could tackle them one by one. And that's something that was done right off the bat. And it was something that really worked. And so my exposures to death came first. And I was able to tackle that one with some pretty good success. Now, it did take some time. And YouTube will never look the same for me now. But on a good note, I don't suffer from the panic attacks that I was having before. And I don't fear it. I can talk about it now without feeling the panic rising. And so I could expose myself to it and I didn't have to engage in the compulsion or i.e. the panic attack. I had to let that anxiety rise and come down naturally on its own.
Which for me was really hard to watch, because as your loved one, I wanted to make sure that you were okay. And before I would step in to help reduce that panic attack, to help prevent it from happening because I didn't like seeing you in that pain.
And I think that was, and to be clear, I think that was more of the piece that we really had to work on was the way that we were handling it, which was that I would have the panic attack and I would seek to you to help me. And you were always willing and ready to do so because you didn't want to see me suffer in that way. And so we had to really learn that him doing that was just perpetuating the cycle of my panic attacks and my OCD with the intrusive thoughts of death. And so it became, no, you got to let that anxiety rise. You got to get to that panic attack yourself, work yourself through it. Mark has to sit there, lay there, watch you, listen to you, can't say anything, can't intervene. And you have to bring that back, that anxiety down yourself. And you have to re-regulate yourself.
And when those panic attacks would happen, she would constantly ask me, And it was hard for me just to have to sit there and just watch. You know, when she felt like she was dying, it looked like she was in pain. I had to sit there and just watch that until it started to come back down and see that form of relief
Mm-hmm.
that you would get to and,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I made it.
Mm-hmm. So the more I exposed myself, the more I brought the anxiety up, then the more I could bring it back down on my own. And then it started to not go up as high as the exposures continued. And so when I was able to tackle that one, I felt comfortable and excited to move to the next one, and so on and so forth. And so I would continuously expose myself to the things that made me scared, that made me fearful, that gave me anxiety. And I would have to resist the urge to engage in the compulsion. And then I'd have to do it again, and I'd have to do it again. And then it worked.
I don't see the panic attacks anymore.
No, no.
But both of us can say that we still see the OCD components come out.
Yes.
Without the anxiety.
Yes. So there are certain parts of my OCD that continue to, how do I want to say this? They continue to plague me.
Yeah. Plague your life.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to say. They continue to plague me, and then there are others that I've become really excited about having conquered. My driving and the need to consistently check in my mirrors for people who I pass by on the street or a sidewalk, cars that I would feel were either getting too close or too far away from me, and I'd have to consistently and pretty compulsively check those. The fear of just driving itself, because, oh my gosh, what if something were to happen? And those intrusive thoughts were enough to take me out of the present moment and be able to focus in on driving itself. And so I had to come up with ways to expose myself to all of these different scenarios. And then it worked. And again, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, I'm happily driving more so and more often than I ever thought I would be doing in my life.
And for me, that's so much easier on my life too.
Yes.
Now that you're driving.
Of course.
You know, you have to bring the dogs to the groomers, and I don't have to worry about myself getting the time off or making sure that the appointment fits within my schedule.
Exactly.
You know, it fits within your schedule, and now you can do it. Even though you might not necessarily like doing it, you can do it.
Oh, I can very much do it. And I'm very excited and proud to do it. And so every time I had a win and I would conquer a fear, or I would conquer an intrusive thought, I would say, oh my gosh, OCD doesn't have to win. I get it now. I get how it was driving for me for so long. And now I'm taking my life back. And so I just slowly started to chip away at all of these things. And it's not a perfect situation yet, but we're working on it.
So I think the people pleasing is the hard one.
The people pleasing is a hard one. Yeah. And it still is one that plagues me. And it takes a lot for me to not send a text message, to not have a conversation that is just fraught with people pleasing, in order to feel like I've left that interaction feeling just right.
And you have now said it over a couple times to me that your driving, your success of driving, how you've overcome those compulsions with driving, the success of driving, because you feel it every time you get behind the wheel and you drive somewhere. Like you even said it today, hey, I drove from our house over to the store and then went and picked up some food for the kids, and you didn't need to use your GPS to do it. you did it all on your, without that, and you felt success with that.
Apparently GPS dates us now. We're not supposed to use that, but just so you know.
But way back in the day before they had actually maps on the GPSs, you had to put in coordinates.
Gen Xers here, everyone.
That was our marriage saver when we drive out of state.
Absolutely.
Now you just type it in your phone and you're good to go.
And you're there. But yes, I am getting more confident, and I do know that what I have said. Yes, please go ahead.
Well, but you've said that you want to tackle the other pieces. You want to feel that same success that you have with your driving.
Yes, tackling the driving, tackling the fear of death, tackling a couple of other things has given me so much success and so much excitement that I really want to take that energy and put it into the aspects of OCD that are the most challenging. People pleasing being the one. Well, one of them.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm getting really good at telling myself, okay, this is a moment that you can practice your ERP. You are going to expose yourself to writing this text message without all of the little pieces and baubles in it that make you feel like it's just right. And you're just going to send it. And it's a work and it's effort. And it still makes me nervous, but I do it anyway because I know that it doesn't make me as nervous now than it would have 6 months ago. And it certainly isn't as much as it would have been a year ago or more. And so again, every time I allow myself to do these exposures, to let the anxiety rise, to bring it back down on my own, and then to be okay and to know that I'm okay without having done any mental compulsions too, because that's one of my big ones was the mental compulsions. If I didn't feel like something was right or an interaction didn't go the way I wanted, I'd have to replay it in my head. And I was often replaying things in my head for hours upon hours a day. And so I don't do that as much, but it's still work. And so I want it to feel as natural as what some of these other pieces have felt like for me now.
Like for the rest of us, that might not suffer from OCD, like sending a text message, it's thank you for the information, period, send. Before you would have, thank you for the information, heart emoji, exclamation point, everything else. And then
if in my head, I would feel like that wasn't enough, I would send a follow-up.
Or if they didn't reply back to you, then you would spiral down.
Yes.
And that's the one I think you still continue to struggle with.
I do. And the spiral would then lead to the mental compulsions. That was the big one for me, was that, well, what if this, what if that, what if this? And then, nope, I'm okay. I'm good. Because you know what? Maybe this is happening or maybe that is happening. And so I would always have this little...
Which is not what she's supposed to be doing.
Rehearsed. No. Yes. I'm saying that's what I would have done.
You still do that a little bit. I mean, I can't see that. I can't see that in your head. No. I wish there was a little bubble above your head of what you were thinking,
or a little light bulb that goes off or starts to spark when I
something
do mental compulsions
to let us know that you're doing them. But I can't see those. Those are the hardest ones.
And those are the ones that I have had to have the most self-accountability for. But I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want to engage in mental compulsions anymore. I don't want to be caught up in my own thoughts 24/7. And so because I've had success with all of this so far, it does bring me hope that I will continue to hold myself accountable because I want it. And I know what it is now. I didn't know it was OCD for a really long time. I didn't know that just this constant anxiety in my life was actually OCD. Now that I do, and I'm more aware of it, I want to shut it down.
I will say this, that she does a lot better at shutting it down. Now that we're further along in the stage of her treatment, now that she's further along in her treatment, I do know that if I feel that it's OCD, if I do feel that it's OCD, then and I say that sometimes that creates a little bit of friction with us sometimes. Like,
It
you
does.
always just think it's my OCD when it's not necessary.
Oh, you're so right.
But it's hard.
Want it to be. I don't want to admit that everything is so driven by my OCD, and I'm not even conscious of it. And it just irks me sometimes now, because now I see the success I've had. And now when I feel like I've slid backwards a bit, or I feel like I've caught myself in a moment where I allowed the compulsion, or something to that effect, it burns me now. I get frustrated with myself. And so certainly I don't want to admit it.
And that's the hard part. You when I call you out on it.
Yes. But I'm saying now. It's going on record.
But
right
nobody
now.
likes to be called out on anything that they feel like they might be doing wrong.
No.
But you're not doing anything wrong. You're No,
I'm putting it on the record. It's always my OCD, y'all. We can refer back to episode 15 from now on when the next time I say.
You're right. It is my OCD. Then we can pull it back up.
Okay. Yep.
Because it is, but I know it's frustrating for you when it is your OCD. Mm-hmm. And you have to admit that it's your OCD and kind of go, oh, yeah, you're right. That happened because of, my OCD, or yeah, you're right. Because of, whatever is happening in our time during that time that it's your OCD. But there are also times like I'll say, hey, why don't you drive? And you'll kind of go, no, you drive. It's just better if we drive together.
Been driving so much.
It's just easier if you drive together. That right there is an escape.
Okay.
And your OCD.
That's fair.
Now, tomorrow, she's supposed to drive, and now it's going to have to be a drive. But,
it's good. I'm ready.
I don't usually sit in the passenger seat while you're driving. No. And, you think that I'm critiquing your driving or this or that. And sometimes I do, because that's, I'm a superior driver than you. Let's just be honest.
Well, you certainly have more years under your belt than I do. I'll give you that. I will give you that one. That's fair too.
Unlike our son thinks he's a superior driver than any of us.
He's already 18, so
he's had 2 years of experience.
Goodness gracious.
Crazy. Oh my goodness.
I feel like it's just really important to express how life-changing this journey has been for us, and to really break down the steps that we took to break down the parts of it that worked for us the best, the parts that maybe didn't work for us so well, and to really give hope to others. And that's what we're really all about.
One of the things I want to do in future episodes is record you going through some of your ERP.
Good gracious.
Kind of real time.
I don't think we need to do that, do we?
To kind of see how it is.
Okay. Well, buckle up, buttercups.
Here
we go.
Because there's a couple things that our therapist and myself have talked about doing. And, I know it would be good for people to hear.
It would be.
How you're feeling, what 100%. You're feeling, what's going on.
Yes.
As you're going through it. And you've experienced enough ERP now that some of the stuff that we have to do is probably some more of the bigger, heavier stuff, but making sure that you're safe.
Yes.
And everything that we do with the ERP is also revolved around safety, like driving, for example.
Yes, of course.
Like I'm not, driving at night in an unknown neighborhood, that one is not necessarily that wouldn't be, unsafe. But if your, OCD came out and your anxiety went up, it could turn into an unsafe
Yes, I could see that
scenario.
happening. Sure.
But yet you've done it.
Yes.
You've driven from people's houses back to our house and, in the dark.
I've done
and, but you've driven those routes before.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was someplace you've never been, I think that potentially could be an unsafe
I agree.
scenario.
Isn't it so interesting when you say these things to me, or I think about them and say them myself, all of the ways that OCD kind of took over my life. And I said this in the last episode, which was, how many moments have I lost out on? And I think about the fact that it's never too late, right? I'm about to have my 48th birthday this summer, and I am just now feeling confident behind the wheel. I am just now feeling like I don't have to people please my way through my life. I am just now feeling a confidence that I've never felt before. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And although there are times that I get frustrated because I wished I had that earlier in my life, I'm so glad I have it now. And I'm so glad that I went on this journey, and these exposures do work. They help. And
they might not feel like it at first.
Not at first. No, you have to keep going. That's what the other idea we've talked about, which is that whole idea of committing to exhaustion, because it gets taxing and exhausting. But if you commit, it works.
It's like doing homework, for math homework. Nobody,
Ew, nobody likes that.
Nobody likes math. Come on, please. Who needs math? Nobody. Not true. The world revolves around math.
Okay. All right. Fine.
But if you don't practice it, then you're not going to get good at it.
Right.
It's like learning a language. If you're not practicing the language, then you're gonna, you're never gonna get good at it. Like when I started college, I worked towards becoming a sign language interpreter. Got to that point of doing that, but now post 20 years, because that was not my native language,
right?
Learn that skill pretty heavy to where I could actually, interpret for people.
Yes.
Now, 20 years later, because I haven't been practicing, I haven't been using it, you'll lose it.
It is. That's such a great analogy to use too, because ERP is a lot of just that if you don't keep working on it and you don't keep practicing it, you do lose it.
You might revert back to your old ways.
Yep.
And I know you don't want to.
And I absolutely do not want to. And so I am now at the place too where I can hold myself more accountable. I can say, all right, ERP, bring it on. Let's see what else you've got for me. Because if I can take the confidence that I've gained from certain aspects of my life into the others that are still challenging for me, it's an exciting prospect.
And I think this podcast also holds you accountable too.
Certainly. Apparently now I have to do ERP live on the air.
We've taken and we've put in different layers.
Yeah.
Some stopgaps, if you would say, that prevent you from falling back into a year ago. We are now coming up to a year of when you kind of graduated. It was in July when you graduated from the intensive. Yep. I mean, we still go every other week, sometimes weekly for therapy, but you still have to practice that.
Right. Well, and again, we do a lot at home now because we've learned how to implement the ERP. We've learned how to, even if we have to, come up with ways to make the ERP work at home, and we do.
Yeah.
And we haven't lost steam for that because
sometimes reluctantly by you.
It's so important. Which one?
Sometimes you just don't want to. Like if I say you drive or something like that, or I don't need to do that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll drive tomorrow.
I don't need that. It's sometimes you'll make an excuse for why you don't want to.
I can't get away with anything tonight.
Why you don't want to do it, but yet you need to do it.
Yes. And once I get on the other side of it, I'll be happy I did it. Just like anything else that's challenging.
Yeah. But it's good when you're on the other side.
It is.
Anything else you want to share tonight about your journey so far?
I don't think so. Not tonight.
Besides that is exhausting.
That I just want to make sure that people recognize that it's not too late, and it can be so life-changing in the most positive of ways to take it on, and that there is help and support and a whole section of cheerleaders out there who want to help those of us who have OCD, because we do know how debilitating it actually can be. And we're here to bring awareness to that. And so please, if you feel encouraged by this, if you feel excited, let us know. We'd love to have your stories shared.
And if you listen to our podcast and you don't know anybody, or you don't have OCD yourself, but just know that OCD is probably it is used in the wrong ways, those words. Those three letters, it's used in the wrong way.
It is one of the most misunderstood and most disrespected mental health disorders out there. And I've heard that spoken by other people who have OCD, who know someone with OCD, and it is just so incredibly true. And I know we've given examples of that as well that I've had to kind of deal with over the years.
I just did last week. Somebody was in my office and we were talking about stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a little OCD with."
Yes, I'm a little OCD.
Yeah,
that phrase gets me. That one gets me. You're not. No, a little OCD doesn't necessarily exist. I have spent hours, days, weeks, months, years when you equate it to how much time I have spent engaging in compulsions, whether they were mental, whether they've been checking in, seeking reassurance, whether they've been physically checking on things, like whatever it is, the amount of time that I have spent having to do that in order to just maintain some level of sanity, if you will. I don't even know another word to say it. It's astronomical. And I personally, as a person who has OCD, refuse to let that get me any longer. And so I'm working as hard as I can to achieve that. But we want to hear from you.
Yes.
We appreciate all of you listening to us so very much.
And thank you for living uncertain with us.
Yes, thank you. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on today's episode and living uncertain with us. We are not therapists, and this podcast is intended to provide information and support. It should not replace traditional means of seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. If you like this episode or would like to hear more, please like, subscribe, or share with someone you think may benefit. Here at Living Uncertain, we're building a community of support. If you and your significant other would like to share your story, we would love to have you on the podcast. Please click on the link in the episode description and fill out the interest form.